You may not know much about the student housing crisis, but you'll hear about it more and more in the news. A Student Beans survey found that 1 in 10 students have found themselves without a place to live at some point during their studies. And that number is set to rise amongst the cost of living crisis and the lack of support from the government. I'm Tom, and today I'm going to explain the student housing issue we're currently facing. What's going on? A Student Beans survey found there are currently 60,000 students living in hotels and Airbnbs, and many students are struggling to pay for their rent as the cost of their accommodation went up after they had chosen it. A third of students are also concerned they won't be able to afford their rent next year. Even though these statistics are shocking, unfortunately there is simply not enough data on the housing status of current and former students to know the real impact of housing insecurity. With the UK's current economic climate and the increase in widening participation at universities, with little financial support for students, more and more students will be unable to afford their rent, and the rate of housing insecurity will increase. Why is the problem getting worse? Well, more young people from disadvantaged backgrounds are being admitted to universities than ever before. Whilst this is a great step in widening the cultural and socio-economic backgrounds of the student population, it does mean those students are more at risk of being unable to pay their rent and bills, because they are less likely to have financial help from their families. In addition to this, since the pandemic, there has been a rise in demand for private accommodation. Therefore, landlords are charging higher rents, which is pricing many students out of the housing market, especially when they only have a part-time job to subsidise their living costs or nothing at all. Making the problem even worse is that many universities have oversubscribed their own accommodation due to an unprecedented increase in the number of students requiring accommodation in 2022. Many universities have resorted to offering students money to move to neighbouring cities, and others relying on the goodness of family and friends to put them up until they can find a permanent housing solution. The fact remains that housing insecurity for students is a mostly hidden issue, and it's something that just isn't talked about enough. So I went to the streets of Manchester to find out just how much the public knows about the crisis students are facing. Did you know that 1 in 10 students have been homeless throughout their studies?
I didn't, but the number doesn't really shock me that much.
But it doesn't. I think if you think about it, it does make sense because finding accommodation is very difficult.
I have spoken to someone who's living in a squat because that's how desperate it is at the moment.
Have you guys ever had any problems with accommodation?
Not for me personally. I know a friend of mine had to couch her for the first term, I think, this year, or up until his reading week in London, yeah.
So one of my friends who was moving here got placed in Liverpool.
Okay.
And then she just stayed at my flat, on the sofa for 3 days. And then they found her a place because she kept emailing them.
So she had to commute from Liverpool. Did she have to pay for that place in Liverpool?
They said they would give her £100 a week, but they didn't. That's why she was emailing them.
Would you have any advice for people who want to save money throughout the winter?
I think just no impulsive buyings, just stick back to the bare necessities and just try, yeah.
Definitely make a plan of how much you can spend a week and just make sure you stick to it.
So the thing my house are doing, we're doing bills by ourselves. So normally the rent comes with bills. But obviously with the energy crisis, most of the providers are making a decent profit or upping the prices. So it's a bit more effort, but if you definitely do it yourself, there's a lot of money to be saved.
You can always, if you always need help, you can always just ask your friends. That's what I always found if I needed help.
Well, there's a stigma around that, isn't it? It's kind of hard to do. What would you say breaking the barrier down for that would be?
Think less about pride and think more about.
This is your livelihood, so if you don't have a place to stay, it's dangerous. You don't want to be out on the streets, especially in winter.
And I think no one will judge you if you openly ask your friends for help and be like, look, I trust you guys. Can you guys help me out? No one's going to look down on you if you do that, I think.
If they do, then they're not really your friends, are they?
So what needs to be done? Student Beans campaigning for the government to extend the cost of living payments to all students in higher education. According to our survey, 29% of students receive under £5,000 of student finance per year, which is 2/3 less than someone on minimum wage working 37.5 hours a week. If you'd like to help, Student Beans have started a petition and we need your support. Click on the link in the video description to sign the petition and increase our chances of getting the government to increase student support during the cost of living crisis. If you're worried about losing your home, visit Shelter, Centrepoint or AKT for more advice and guidance. If you need financial advice, visit Turn to Us or Step Change. And if you're worried about your mental health, Samaritans, Young Minds and Student Minds offer online resources, as well as phone helplines. We've linked all these amazing organisations in the video description, so make sure to check them out. That's it for today. Don't forget to read the description below to check out some of the amazing organisations and resources that can offer advice, and help our campaign by signing our petition. Please subscribe to the Student Beans channel, and I'll see you soon.